midnight, we'll see the dawn of a new decade as we welcome in 2020. However, for many, it may signal disappointment and unfulfilled goals and wishes over the past 2 decades. It is after all 20 years since the beginning of the millennium. How can a person cope with all of this? Certainly a lot to try and digest. To tell us a little bit more from the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, SADAG, we've got Cassey Chambers. Welcome to Morning Live. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So I suppose many will do a lot of reflection and introspection today, and I suppose it's something that they've been building up in the last couple of weeks as we've been doing the countdown to the new year. How does one reflect and how does one cope with all of these reflections, especially because it's unfulfilled goals that generally come up?
I think for a lot of people, 2019 has been very difficult. There's a lot of issues that people are dealing with, and we're definitely seeing that in the call center. And I think when you're coming now to the new year, there's all this pressure and expectation that we put on ourselves. We reflect on the year, what has happened, what has not happened, and we're our biggest critic. We put so much pressure. We should have done this. We should have done this better. We could have done this. And then going into the new year, we go in with these huge goals and these huge expectations of ourselves. And that can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to start the year off, and already you can feel like a sense of failure or as if you're not going to achieve these goals. So I think we have to be so careful as to reflect, and it's so easy to focus on the negative, what went wrong, what didn't work out. But you really have to work hard on figuring out what actually did happen, this, as small as they could be, what did go right this year, and go into the new year with that grateful heart.
Yeah, counting your victories rather than looking at what didn't go right. But obviously today, and we've been saying it here on Morning Live, and you hear people just mentioning it in the shops, it's the last day of the decade. So it's almost as if there's like added significance because every new year comes with that reflection and introspection. Do you feel that maybe at this point, because we're going into a brand new decade, there is a lot more focus on those goals and those dreams that one would have had over the last 10 years?
Exactly, and I think also with society, all this pressure and all this focus is put on New Year's. What are you doing? How are you bringing in the new year? What are your New Year's resolutions? People have already started sending messages and kind of reflecting on 2019 and what you're going into 2020. So we're already going in with a burden of what to expect and what to prepare for. I think we have to be so careful, is that this can put a lot of pressure on us, and we can actually go in and actually setting ourselves up to fail.
Yeah, I mean, how do people cope with what they see on social media? Because now you're not at work, you've got a lot more time to be surfing the net, to be looking at what people are saying on Twitter and taking a look at the pictures on Instagram, which can instantly, if you're comparing yourself to some of the wonderful holidays that other people are having, can instantly make you feel like a failure.
It can be, and I think from a lot of the calls that we're receiving, especially this period of time, you know, even though society and everyone is saying we should be happy and have this big party, and there's a lot of people who don't feel like that and they're going in feeling really deflated. With the calls that we're getting are from a lot of people who feel very lonely, very isolated, withdrawn, feel like they don't have family or friends. We get a lot of calls over this time from the elderly who children aren't visiting, children are away, people aren't seeing them as often. And I think it's also that anxiety. The festive season isn't like the movies. It isn't beautiful and everyone coming together and happy and lots of food and presents. For a lot of people, it's incredibly lonely and it can be very depressing. And we can add all this extra stress. And going into New Year with all these expectations and promises can be very difficult for a lot of people. And they can feel quite anxious going into the new year.
So Cassey, maybe there's some people that are watching us now and they haven't yet picked up the phone to phone SADAG and share the loneliness, share the anxiety that they've been feeling during this period. But what is your message to them?
I think the biggest thing is that they're not alone. There is always help. There is always hope. So when they feel like they can't do this alone, or they have no one in their corner or no one to speak to, there's always someone at SADAG. We're open throughout the festive season. We're open 24 hours a day, and they can call us on our toll-free helpline, so it's for free. They don't need money, or they can SMS us and we can call them back. They can also visit our websites for those self-help tips on how to cope throughout the festive season and how to do some self-care. I think that's really important, where you can learn as much as possible to help yourself cope.
We've mentioned it already, New Year's resolutions. Lots of people are going to be making them, and it is good to have those goals and those dreams, because it also puts a little bit of focus into where you put your energy. But what is your advice to people?
I think for New Year's resolutions, be very careful. Don't always go with all the threads and the memes and the Instagram posts of all the resolutions you should have that are always these big goals that people put their pressure on. Be specific, be very clear, be realistic, and also throw in a bit of self-love in there. You know, look after yourself. And remember, New Year's resolutions, new goals don't have to just be set on the 1st of Jan. Constantly look at changing your goals throughout the year.
What are some of your the strategies that you would give to viewers that are watching us for the year ahead?
I think to be very careful and to look after yourselves, be very mindful. There's so many different mindfulness techniques that can help with your anxiety or stress, especially going into the new year and especially going into 2020. Learn those coping skills. Things like deep breathing, controlled breathing, self-help tips. Looking after yourself is incredibly important. If you can look after yourself, you can look after everyone else around you. And I think that's really key for 2020.
But how do you manage that? Because people in our society are so conscious about being self-absorbed, so they're not quite sure how to get this balance of taking care of yourself without being self-absorbed.
Especially in a society where it's all about more. We need to do more, we need to have more, we need to work harder and play harder. And it's all of this pressure and stress that we put on ourselves. I think you really have to slow down, and as part of that priority, start from the 1st of January, putting a to-do list and finding time for that self-care, making sure that you're getting enough rest, that you're eating properly, doing some kind of exercise, not taking out a gym membership, as we know all gyms are really busy during January, but necessarily going for a walk around the block, taking on a new hobby, doing things that can actually fill up your cup so that you're able to give to others. If we don't start changing the way that we look after ourselves and that we look after others, we're only going to have a more difficult year. And again, you're teaching people around you to look after themselves too. And again, if you're feeling depressed or anxious, and perhaps you didn't look at it at 2019 and it's really starting to impact your daily functioning, it's really important that you seek professional help to try to help you and to try to start the new year on the right foot.
Yeah, also just be honest with yourself. What's that toll-free number?
It's 0800 456 789. It's a 24-hour helpline, or you can SMS us on 31393.
All right, thank you very much. That's Cassey Chambers from SADAG talking to us about coping mechanisms and also the best way to go into 2020.